The long-awaited final report on foreign interference in Canada's election is finally out. And whoo boy, was it actually pretty juicy. Although it might not have been in the ways you'd expect. See, I just spent 2.5 hours in a media lockup with so many other journalists, where I got early access to the foreign interference report, which is good because the Commissioner Marie-Josée Hogue spent the last 18 months looking at tens of thousands of documents, most of which were classified, and spoke to more than 100 witnesses across dozens of hearings. And seeing as you're probably not a massive nerd who wants to read all 860 pages by yourself, allow me to summarize. There were 3 big takeaways in this by my reading. The first is that our system is working despite efforts to undermine it. 2, there are no traitors in Parliament, which I will expand on. And 3, disinformation is actually the biggest threat to our democratic institutions. But yeah, I'm sorry to the folks who thought this report would cause like career-ending scandals and mass resignations, because nothing in this report comes close to that. At least not in the ways you'd expect. Because you guys remember that whole scandal a while back when that report came out from the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians, also known as NSICOP? That's a group of parliamentarians, so MPs and senators from multiple political parties who have top secret security clearance so they can dig into national security issues. Yeah, them. Remember when they released that bombshell report that claimed that Canadian MPs had been wittingly and semi-wittingly helping out with foreign interference efforts? It made international news. Well, in the new report, the commissioner just totally skewered their finding. She said that while there were legitimate concerns about parliamentarians screwing up in a variety of ways, like having problematic relationships with foreign officials, exercising poor judgment, behaving naively, and perhaps displaying questionable ethics, she said that she, quote, did not see evidence of parliamentarians conspiring with foreign states against Canada. Quote, while some conduct may be concerning, I did not see evidence of traitors in Parliament. See, the thing here is that intelligence can be wrong. The commissioner gave this warning in the report and even gave an example of it in action. The NSICOP report, the one that made all those headlines, it claimed that, quote, an elected official proactively provided confidential information to Indian officials at a particular time. That allegation, she said, was a big deal. Like, if that had happened, it would have been very serious. But when she investigated it, it turns out this information wasn't confidential at all. Yeah, it had already been made public. But NSICOP in their report couldn't have actually dodged that mistake, because the CSIS document, that's our spy agency that NSICOP was using to write this report, yeah, it made the mistake. So they properly cited the CSIS document, but the CSIS document was wrong. So yeah, intelligence can very much be wrong, which is why it's so irresponsible to call for the names of the people mentioned in the report to be released. Especially when you consider that the commissioner, who once again had access to piles and piles of classified documents, found the NSICOP conclusions about witting and semi-witting participants in foreign interference went, quote, beyond what the available intelligence could support. Woof. So this clears that up. There was concerning behavior, yes, but no evidence of traitors in our parliament. So we really got to cool it with those witch hunts. The next thing I'll mention, and this isn't one of my top 3 big takeaways, but I'm saying it because I know a lot of people were speculating about it. No, there's no bombshell about the conservative leadership and Pierre Poilievre. Although Poilievre did get a pretty clear hint, nudge, nudge about getting his security clearance. In fact, the commissioner, who made 51 recommendations in total, dedicated an entire one to that little finger wag, stating in recommendation 28 that, quote, leaders of all political parties represented in the House of Commons should be encouraged and given the opportunity to obtain top secret security clearances as soon as possible after they become leaders. Moving on, the second biggest takeaway is that overall, everything's fine. Or to quote the commissioner, our democratic institutions have thus far remained robust. I love the plain language they write these things in. She said that we've been talking about foreign interference a lot more, and that some of this is fueled by a lack of understanding about how intelligence works. Because intelligence isn't like evidence in a court of law, it's more like gossip. It can be right, and it can be very wrong. But the commissioner's big takeaway from months and months of investigating is that while there are, quote, a very small number of isolated cases where foreign interference may have had some impact on the outcome of a nomination contest or the result of an election in a given riding, there is no evidence to suggest that our institutions have been seriously affected by such interference or that parliamentarians owe their successful election to foreign entities. She added that while any interference is troubling, she's reassured by the minimal impact such efforts have had to date. And I thought this part was actually kind of cute. She even gave a little shout out to our politicians who overall did pretty well when it comes to foreign interference. She said, quote, "I did not come across a situation where a parliamentarian decided not to speak out or expressed an opinion that was not really their own out of fear of reprisals from foreign actors. However, I attribute this to the courage of our elected officials because the risk is real, particularly given the potential for retaliatory disinformation campaigns by foreign states." It wasn't all praise though. She did point out that the government's response to all of this has been far from perfect. She said they've taken too long to act, that the coordination between the various players involved hasn't been great, that the processes for passing information along to decision makers like elected officials hasn't always been as effective as it should have been, and that the government has been a poor communicator and insufficiently transparent when it comes to foreign interference. So they gotta step all of that up. But luckily, she notes that a number of government actors have said they intend to increase transparency and improve communication with the public. She did like that, but said that so far their efforts have been piecemeal and underwhelming. So, oops. The final, and in my opinion, biggest takeaway, so if you're still here, you're gonna be smarter than all of your friends, is about disinformation. She said it's no exaggeration to say that information manipulation, whether foreign or not, poses, quote, "the single biggest risk to our democracy and is a, quote, existential threat." I couldn't agree more, Commissioner. She said that democracy relies on values and principles like equality of individuals and respect for others. But by fostering distrust, preventing compromise, and creating division, disinformation threatens this fundamental feature of democracy. See, while some bad actors still interfere with democracy the old-fashioned way, she said, quote, "Many are now attempting to interfere in our democracy by engaging in disinformation on social networks." So while we've been busy freaking out about members of Parliament who might have been witting participants in interference based on extremely shaky intelligence, the bigger threat has been misinformation and disinformation. The whole time? Yes. The whole time. These falsehoods can be aimed against a person, against a party, or even as retaliation to punish someone. It can also, and Russia loves doing this, be used with the sole aim of stirring up division within democracies. Russia's been going hard at this in the US, and you should probably consider who they've been paying to unwittingly help them. Then maybe reflect on whether you get your Canadian news from the same kind of voice. Even if Russia isn't funding your favorite right-wing influencer, you should probably consider the fact that they think these voices help rather than hurt their efforts to destabilize Western democracies. And maybe consider shaking up your information diet. So yeah, that is a very simplified summary of what is in this 860-page foreign interference report. Hopefully we all learn from this and people stop believing lies on social media and become more aware of how disinformation threatens our democracies. Maybe, I don't know, tech oligarchs and certain politicians will stop using mis and disinformation to divide us. Is it really too much to ask? Oh, this conspiracy-laden fundraising email is from yesterday? The one where Pierre Poilievre is talking about global elites, the WEF, and the Great Reset, and eating bugs? Oh, okay. Yeah, we're screwed. What do you think of all this?